Good morning. As you are. Yes, way in the back there, those online, so happy to see each and every one of you. It takes the deep stamina, yes, to come out into the warm air, so good for you. Yeah, good for you. So I love that song, Let It Be. It just doesn't get old for me. It just is almost 50 years ago that it was written for those of us who are a little older than that. They remember it. And so Paul McCartney wrote that song. That was in the 70s, I think, 1970. And the band was about ready to split up, I think, is what was going on. There was some turmoil around that in him. And so he was having a very fitful night. So his mother came to him at night and shared this song, these words, let it be. Just let it be. And many of the lyrics. And so Mother Mary is actually his mother. I always thought it was the Virgin Mary, so it makes it even more beautiful and lovely. What? I'm the only one that thought that? Okay. Yeah, okay, good. I love it when we're all in this joke together. The cosmic joke of waking up. So we're continuing our series on Eye of the Storm for those that are still in our groups. There's at least over 60 people studying this book, and I've been able to get around to most of you. Just move around, and I love how deep you're going and how you're finding these truths to really stir something in you. And I really get that it's not an easy book. You know, it just... I think the next one I'll pick will be nicer, okay? So you'll hang out and it'll be easier. So actually next month we are going to do something easier, which is about prayer. Yes? Yes, because we're about prayer, Benita. Thank you so much. And we're going to do a whole month on prayer, the Lord's Prayer and learning to pray. And we're going to do the World Day of Prayer. And we're joining Unity Worldwide Movement and Silent Unity, but we're going to have our own theme, which is I stand for humanity and celebrate our diversity. Because that's what's going on right now, right? It's just we want to stand together in this thing called life. So join us for that. So today's idea is about non-resistance. Non-resistance. So Let It Be is perfect for that. And I don't know about you, but I continually work with letting it go. Anyone else here sort of share that? Yeah, sort of letting life be, and then I take it back and judge it, and oh no, it can't be this way, and I'm sure that I have a better way, God. Right? So this letting go and this law of non-resistance is one for each of us. It's sort of said that the world's most destructive force can really be resistance. Resistance to what is. Resistance is what keeps us sort of in bondage. It keeps us in unhappiness. It keeps us in poverty of not enough. It keeps us in a mental, emotional, and physical pain. So what we want to do is to live in the let go. I want to live in the let go. This energy field of being non-resistant to life. So our resistance to a situation actually prolongs its effect, yes? The more we resist, the more it persists. That's sort of one of the first things we learn in New Thought and the idea. And the moment that we can relax into the situation and not fight it, we stop giving energy to that idea, to that effect, and then we could go back to cause, what we're really about, what is our purpose, what is our intention. So a tense mind sort of grips and has this undesirable idea that keeps us in this bondage to it, a thought, and it ties us to the experience itself. So the mind is enthralled in sort of the past and the future, and doesn't really always stay in the present, right? That we're so enthralled with what happened before, the story, and how we continually tell it over and over again. Any of you have that situation, something's really challenges you, and you just keep thinking about how it was and how this shouldn't have happened, right? That's sort of what the mind says. It shouldn't be this way. And so the moment the mind can actually take on calm or peace, as Jesus did with the disciples, peace, be still. That is for us to call in the peace. God, help me be still. Let go of this thought. Let go of this idea that this needs to be different. Allow me to see it in a way that can uplift me, that I can be lifted out of its torment. So I have a clip here, and it talks about the spiritual eye opens and the mind awakens to the blessing of the awareness of the blocks of resistance to the presence of God or good. And there's a quote here from a metaphysician and author, Florence Scovel Shinn. One's ships come in over a calm sea. And isn't it true that when we're seeking this wisdom and this new idea, most of the time it comes when we finally get still and stop resisting what is. When we stop thinking about it, it finally comes to us of what the next step will be. So there's this delightful story about a woman who likes to go shopping. I'm one of those women. And so she has a great day, doing her shopping. And about halfway through, she's needing to rest and take nourishment. So she finds her favorite coffee house. And she stops and gets that beautiful iced coffee, just with the right amount of cream and sweetener. And there I go. I'm just there. But she also gets this bag of cookies. So she goes to sit down, and there's not any tables. So she finds or sees one gentleman who's sitting by himself in a 4-seat arena. And so she asks him if she could sit down. And so he says, of course, join me, please. So she sits down and sets her coffee down, and she reaches into her purse and takes out her magazine and starts reading. And after a little while, she looks up and she grabs one of the cookies. And right when she does that, the man with her also takes a cookie. And she's like, wow, that's interesting. He's eating my cookies, right? So there goes the mind, and she's trying to just stay present in this wonderful moment and be back in her magazine and reading. And so another few moments go by, and she looks up and she reaches for one of these cookies, and so does the gentleman. Takes another cookie. And she's like, in her mind, I can't believe it. I can't believe, he's eating my cookies. And so she tries to go back, into her reading, and her mind just, won't be quiet. And her whole body starts to stiffen up, and pretty soon she looks up and she recognizes there's just one cookie left. And so he reaches in and grabs the last cookie. And she's like, can't believe it. He breaks it in half and gives her the big half. And she's so indignant. She's like, I can't believe it. She shoves the cookie in her mouth, puts everything, grabs it, and walks out the door. And as she's trying to put away her magazine, she looks inside her purse, and there are her cookies in her bag. Oh my gosh, can you imagine how you feel in that moment, right? Just about as small as a little tiny mouse under a crumb. So here she was, making up a story, MSU, which is what we do, make stuff up, and then create a story, right? And we resist what is by creating something that's not even real. And thank God she had the evidence that her cookies were in her purse, because had she not, she would have gone on believing that pathetic story, yes? That someone took something from her. But when we are in our right mind, when we are in who and what we've come here to be, even if they're not our cookies, who cares, right? But when we're in that place of there's not enough, I'm not enough, then we hoard, we hold on to, we resist giving out. One of the things I've learned in life is, the only thing missing in any life situation is what I am not giving it. Yes? Yes. So if I am needing generosity in that moment, I need to be generous. If I'm needing connection, then I need to connect. That is the principle. So, non-resistance is really the secret to life, to not take things personally, is to continually ask. I love the question, what am I making this mean? Something happens and I'm upset. What have I made it mean? That I'm not good enough? That they're against me? That there's not enough? That I'm somehow less than you? The story is a perfect example of non-resistance. We're resistance to combating what appears to be, not what really is. And so is life. So much of our combating is really about what we're not even really aware of. There's a real story that came out of the country of India years ago. Apparently, once the English had colonized that country, that they established some businesses in India, and they were sort of yearning for some recreation. So they decided to build a golf course in Calcutta. And one of the first things that they recognized that was unique to this area was that there was a whole lot of monkeys. And these monkeys loved to find the golf balls and pick them up and put them in a different place. So at first the golfers sort of tried to control the monkeys. Their first strategy was to sort of build a high fence around the fairways and the greens, and really that seemed that was not going to work, right? Because what monkeys climb, right? I'm not sure whose brilliant idea that was, but I'm sure they thought they were connected to some form of intelligence. So that didn't work. So the next thing they did was they began to lure the monkeys away. But nothing amused the monkeys more than watching humans go entirely wild whenever their little white balls were disturbed. They loved it. They just, they couldn't wait to see the next human just, be totally disturbed over their little white ball. So in desperation, the British began trapping the monkeys, but for every monkey that they trapped and took away, 2 more came. So finally, they began to let go. They began to say, well, how can we live in harmony with these monkeys? And finally, someone had the most brilliant idea. Let's just make up a rule on this golf course that play the ball wherever the monkey drops it. Isn't that the best? I mean, that is so in the let it be and, non-resistance and more joy, right? Let's just be in that moment without having it to be another way. And I still have used that when I'm sort of challenged by life. Denise, just play the gosh darn ball wherever the monkey drops it. Just be with life on life's terms and stop trying to push life away. Because that is the resistance that we feel. That is what creates the tension. is in the resistance to what is. I know Byron Katie, a beautiful spiritual teacher from California that had a beautiful awakening from her own suffering, deep, deep suffering. And she finally was able to awaken from that and see her divine self along with her egoic self, and able to separate those identities out. And what she said was, the only time I suffer is when I argue with reality. The only time I suffer is when I argue with what is. Just like the monkeys. Oh, we can really get power over our world, right? By harming all the monkeys, or, but the karma will come back. The cause and effect will eventually come back. That we can't destroy something without destroying us, yes? Yes. And we're learning that the hard way as well. So resistance can produce hurt and poverty, unhappiness, and ill health. So if we want to stop resisting, we need to stop defending. Stop defending our lives and recognize that no one and nothing is against us. Yes? Yes. And that's not an easy one. We're working towards that. We're working towards really recognizing, what if it's true? What if removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence is the answer? And the blocks are simply my resistance to what is. My blocks are being in the way of God rather than the way of God. And in the way of God is about judgment and blame and criticism and lack and separation. So the things that we meet in life do not hurt us, that they are powerless to affect us. It is our reaction to those things. That each and every day we get to decide how life is. We get to make a decision each day how our life is. We get to define what it means. This happened, therefore this means this. Each and every day we get to choose what our life means. And the Old Testament says that there's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So there's that revenge part that wants to get back. And as Mother Teresa said, then if that were really to happen, we'd have a whole bunch of blind people, toothless blind people. So Eric Butterworth, our beautiful minister, who wrote so many beautiful books, Discover the Power Within, being one of them, he says, the more than human, that we are more than human, and that from our divine selves, the only way to get even is to love more than the other, to give more than the other, to be the Christ, to be forgiving. And so when we are in non-resistance, we withdraw the power of our attention and we refuse to participate in life's dramas. We don't have to play in the storm, right? So there it is, the world. Remember, Jesus said, be in the world, but not of the world. Don't walk into the storm and think that you are the cause of this, or that this is who you are. But to be peace, to be in the I am of the storm, is the centeredness of the storm. The I am that I am has sent me to this now moment to be in this chaos. That I can be the presence of clarity, the presence of harmony. the presence of love in the midst of challenge, of confusion, chaos, and hatred. That's the eye of the storm. And so the eye of the storm is the God energy of presence, to bring presence to every life situation. So we are the avenue through which the presence of God lives in the world. For this to occur, we must be present to life. You must be present to win, yes? Yes. Yes. We must be present to win. And so non-resistance is sort of the eye of the storm of defensiveness. It's the seat of wholeness and the contact point between heaven and earth. That's what we are. We are the contact point between heaven and earth. We are bringing this divine idea known as God, the Christ of God, into manifestation. Bringing God to earth. I was a witness to that just recently. And I do sometimes get a lot of my information on Facebook. I really enjoy most of that. And what I found was this beautiful idea that I have this great picture. Yeah. And this is a beautiful man that lost his wife in the El Paso shooting. This is Antonio Basco, and he lost his wife after 22 years. And he had no other family, really. His wife did have a few family members, but he had no. And so he went to the local funeral service and asked them to pick out a casket and did a service. And they were so generous, they put it on the social media, and there were hundreds of people who came from the El Paso and areas around, all over. There was over 500 flower pieces sent from people that didn't even know him, that they stood with him. I stand for humanity and celebrate our diversity. There was so much diversity at this beautiful memorial service that something so tragic as a heartbreaking, mass shooting and murders that continue in our country, but somehow something beautiful got created as we stood together. And this beautiful man says, "Never have I ever had so much love in my life as this one holy day." That my guess is that he was changed at depth from this experience. That the love that he received from that day, from the parting of his beloved, that he will use for good. I see that. That somehow that community got drawn together, that they were mourning together. And so sometimes what's in the way is the way. His way of coming together in the community, of allowing people to mourn with him, to celebrate life in their own way, was precious and beautiful. And then there's a clip I want to show. This clip is with Anderson Cooper and Stephen Colbert. And it's not a political clip. It's just an actual beautiful moment when two souls are connecting. And both Stephen and Anderson lost their fathers very early in life, at 10 years old. And they talk about how that has affected them. And as this clip is beginning, Anderson is talking about how he wishes he had a scar on his face so it would show the depth of his pain. So let's play this now.
Task. I actually, this is going to sound weird, but I've for a long time, and probably still to this day, wish that I had a scar. I wish I had like a scar.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, no, like more like a Bond villain, like running down my face. That's unavoidable for people to see because it would just be a silent signal to everybody I meet that I'm not the person I was meant to be, or I'm not the person that I started out being.
But you're entirely the person you were meant to be.
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe this is a warped version of.
So there's another timeline with a happier Anderson Cooper?
Yeah. I mean, no. I mean, there's not. It doesn't exist in an alternate universe. But yes, I guess.
I guess that's what I mean about like.
But that's your fate.
My experience.
That is your
my experience, and for example of my mother,
right.
And from what I read and experience of my particular faith, extremely imperfectly, admittedly, is that there isn't another timeline, and this is it. And the bravest thing you can do is to accept with gratitude the world as it is, and then, you know, as Gandalf says, so do all people who are in such times.
You told an interviewer that you have learned to, in your words, love the thing that I most wish had not happened.
I remember.
You went on to say, "What punishments of God are not gifts?" Do you really believe that?
Yes. It's a gift to exist. It's a gift to exist, and with existence comes suffering. There's no escaping that. And I guess I'm either a Catholic or a Buddhist when I say those things, because I've heard those from both traditions. But I didn't learn it that I was grateful for the thing I most wish hadn't happened, is that I realized it. Is that, and it's an oddly guilty feeling.
It doesn't mean you are happy.
I don't want it to have happened. I want it to not have happened.
Right.
But if you are grateful for your life, which I think is a positive thing to do, not everybody is,
right.
And I'm not always, but it's the most positive thing to do, then you have to be grateful for all of it. You can't pick and choose what you're grateful for. And then, so what do you get from loss? You get awareness of other people's loss.
Well, that's true. Empathy.
Which allows you to connect with that other person.
Right.
Which allows you to love more deeply and to understand what it's like to be a human being, if it's true that all humans suffer.
Right.
And so, at a young age, I suffered something so that by the time I was in serious relationships in my life, with friends, or with my wife, or with my children, is that I have some understanding that everybody is suffering. And however imperfectly, acknowledge their suffering and to connect with them and to love them in a deep way that not only accepts that all of us suffer, but also then makes you grateful for the fact that you have suffered, so that you can know that about other people. And that's what I mean. It's about the fullness of your humanity. What's the point of being here and being human if you can't be the most human you can be? I'm not saying best, because you're going to be a bad person and a most human. I want to be the most human I can be. And that involves acknowledging and ultimately being grateful for the things that I wish didn't happen, because they gave me a gift.
There is the line that we can all remember, that life is a gift, and that we don't get to choose which ones will happen and which ones don't, but we do get to choose how we respond to those. I love when he says to Anderson, you know, you are entirely the person you were meant to be, right here in your imperfections, even with your father missing. These are all experiences that have brought you to this now moment, to be the person that you are here to be. That none of us get out of this life without having some major difficulties. I love how he said the bravest thing you can do is to accept with gratitude the world as it is. That doesn't mean we don't want it to be different. But we don't waller in, it shouldn't be this way. We can stand for humanity, stand for what we believe is right. but not resist what is, because resistance causes our suffering and shrinks us into a powerlessness. And we want to be powerful, yes? Yes. We want to be full of God, full of power, to do what is ours to do. So if nothing else, it allows us to be a compassionate human, the suffering, which is a beautiful thing, to have compassion for another. So realizing each moment that we get to choose again how we see life. What am I making this mean? How am I resisting? Is there a monkey who has stolen my ball? Is there a person who I think has stolen my cookies? Is there something I wish could be different? Jerry Jampolsky said to me, that was one of the most brilliant things I heard, is really forgiveness is about letting go of hope of having a better past. Isn't that great? Finally letting go. I wish that wouldn't have happened, you know. Finally embracing the whole of us, as Stephen says, that we're whole to embrace the difficulties and the great things. That's the fullness of life. I don't want to be denied the fullness of life. That you are here to do amazing things, as Jesus said. These things I do, you shall do also. He was our way shower. We are here to be the Christ of God, nothing less. And it is time for us to get on with it. Yes? Yes. So let us pray. Beloved presence of all life, we give thanks for these teachings. We give thanks for this holy and sacred day. We give thanks for the music here that enlivens our being and nurtures our souls. We give thanks for each one here and each one watching live, that we are so connected through these teachings, through this moment, through this day, that we are making a difference in the world by our standing together. And for that we say, thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen. Thank you. God bless you.